fact. The tension, perhaps immediately, is how do we spend these dollars in a way that do create jobs and make the most use of this opportunity, but at the same time give us transformational change that we aren't right back in this problem in our economy again tomorrow.
Okay.
So how can we move toward more sustainable development investments in our planning and program, and particularly for southwestern Pennsylvania? What is our vision and our plan so that every single one of these precious dollars is leveraged for long-term systemic change for the better?
And part of our economic stimulus package here on PCNC is to sell commercial time. And so we're going to listen to some commercials right now. And then, Audrey, when we come back, you're going to have an opportunity to talk more. We're talking about the economic stimulus package and how it affects us. Stand by. Okay, we're back and we're talking about the economic stimulus package and how it might affect us in southwestern Pennsylvania. And we're in a little bit of a discussion now on whether this economic stimulus package overall is a good idea. Dr. Gusky thinks it is not. She would rather see a package of tax cuts and the like to stimulate the economy. Give us your response to Dr. Thomas and Mr. Gold.
Well, my concern, PJ, is if you increase government spending to the point that it seems like it's going to be increased, you're really crowding out private investing and more corporate spending, which tends to fuel the economy. And predictions are that it may drop the growth of the economy by 0.3% or more, which we desperately don't need. And so, you know, my concern is, you know, I don't want to be, I look at the North Shore connector, and I think that's the type of projects we're going to be funding. And as a lot of Western Pennsylvanians know, we got some funding for it, we started it, we knew it was going to cost more than it did, and now it's a sore spot. And hopefully it will be finished since it's been started, but it's a concern. I don't want to see a lot of these projects, these makeshift projects. Are we going to really be increasing jobs? That's what we're looking for. We want people to be secure in their jobs, in their health care, with their families.
Well, one interesting thing is you bring up the North Shore Connector project was a project that came out of Washington, D.C. during the Bush administration when Republicans were in charge. These are the people who decided this money should be coming out to some sort of a project. We won the bid on that. So this is not something that, you know, this is part of a conservative administration that says this is one way that we need to continue growth in the economy is through public transit and this kind of a project. So I don't know that that's a real good argument for saying that we shouldn't have the federal government pumping money into the, who's going to be spending the companies that you talk about?
I guess the point
they're going to be spending it.
Obviously they need to spend, and there's different infrastructure, roads, schools, medical facilities, computers, technologies. We need to increase and improve, absolutely. The problem is, let's make sure they're programs that are going to be beneficial to everyone and needed in the community, instead of, in a sense, just throwing money various places to create these projects that maybe necessarily don't really benefit the community.
So we get to oversight. Oversight is going to be a major concern, not only for conservatives, but for everybody. You know, we're wondering, all this money is going to be floating around. And as President Obama said himself, there are going to be mistakes. There are going to be bad things that are going to happen as a result of this. What about oversight in things that are sustainable, like the housing that you were talking about, the other green projects?
Yes.
How do we know this isn't going to go down the drain?
Well, I might mention that there's an independent national website that's been put up that's called stimuluswatch.org. It's an opportunity where Americans can watch every dollar that's spent in the stimulus package and vote in with their review of the appropriateness. For our region in southwestern Pennsylvania in particular, there's lots of public process that will engage and allow citizens to have a voice. The Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission in early March will be holding special hearings on amending our region's transportation improvement program, including, I think it's $117 million needed to gap close funding or spending on the tunnels to the North Shore, which I might say a word in defense about. For any 21st century metropolitan city in America with aspirations of greatness, of which Pittsburgh has and deserves, the tunnels are our city and region's link for the longer-term goal of running public transportation, light rail, out to the airport.
But usually the tunnels go through hills, not under rivers. That's the, you know, one of the problems with this thing. But anyway, let me ask Dr. Thomas. He's on the phone with us now. What about the idea of oversight, or the? Are you worried that some of this money that's going to go into the health industry, for example, might be wasted?
Absolutely not. I think that one of the things that that I'm so impressed with the new administration is that this is not going to be business as usual. And I'm you know, organizations like courts, people don't mess with his organization. You have the Consumer Health Coalition. You have grassroots organizations in Pittsburgh, like the Center for Healthy Hearts and Souls, the Healthy Black Family Project. These grassroots organizations were part of making the change that brought the new administration into being. And so now is not the time to sit back and let the government run things. This is time to step up and to get organized and to hold community forums and to make sure that people are aware of how to access that transparency website. This is no time to sit back. This is a time to step up. And that's what will make the difference now versus how things were done in the past. And believe me, Pittsburgh needs some work. We need to make sure that everybody benefits from the job creation. I can't tell you the number of construction sites that I go by in this city where I see absolutely zero diversity among the workforce. I see no black workers, no Hispanic workers. This package has to bring opportunities for everybody.
Okay, we're going to continue with that conversation in just a moment. We're going to take a short break. We're going to talk how does this affect retail? How does it affect us? That's what we're talking about tonight, the economic recovery package. We'll be right back. Will be affecting us, or how we hope it's going to affect us positively here in southwestern Pennsylvania. Dr. Gusky, what about retail? That's one of your areas of expertise. How have we been doing over the last year in retail compared to previous years, and how is this going to affect retail?
Well, you and all our viewers know, as I've been talking to you on KQV and here on PCNC, it's been ugly. I mean, that's the only word that I could think of. The retail picture was horrendous in 2008. Unfortunately, broke all kinds of records, record-breaking low records. Christmas sales were the worst we had seen in probably 50 years.
Is it because of the economic downturn, or is that just the way the economy is in Pittsburgh anyway?
Is it the chicken or the egg? It's in one of those things. Consumers stopped spending because they were concerned, and then the less they spent, the worse the recession got. So it just kept building like a snowball running down the hill.
So how does this affect retail, this economic stimulus package?
Well, the point is, if you get people comfortably situated in jobs and having them earn a nice living and being responsible for their family finances and households, they're going to be spending more money. If you increase, as we had said a few breaks ago, if you get consumer confidence up, so people are going to then be spending. It's all a matter of consumer psychology. People are concerned. They're fearful of their job security. They're fearful of their health care. They're concerned about their family. And so as a result, they're just not spending. People have cut back substantially. I think if we had been on the air a year ago, I would never have imagined, I would never have told you it was going to be this bad. With the gross national product dropping about 7%, once again, in the worst in 25 years. And so you've got to get people comfortable with the economy. You've got to get them spending. If you look at January sales, they went up, believe it or not. And so...
What was that all about?
Well, that's exactly what was that all about. If you think, what was happening? People who got the gift cards, they spend them in January.
Okay.
When does it count? When they spend it. Also, sales were phenomenal. So people went out there and grabbed up all the bargains they possibly could. That was a nice shot in the arm. And keep in mind, for Western Pennsylvania, too, what was the biggest shot in the arm? Steelers in the Super Bowl. And so as a result, that spending
Let me ask you something. This is off the subject entirely, but I'm curious about this.
Okay.
Giant Eagle is advertising selling gift cards, not just to give as gifts, but to use yourself to buy things. I think it's Giant Eagle, but some retailers are doing this. I'm guessing that the advantage of that to a retailer is you get a gift card, and let's say it's $50, you spend down to about 46 or 47 and leave the balance on there. And so there's a higher profit margin. Am I right about that?
Absolutely true. Gift cards are truly a gift for the retailers, whether it's Giant Eagle who's selling them and they are using them, developing relationships with all the other retailers, or the retailers themselves. They claim there's billions of dollars, about $6 billion that's not spent. About 6 to 8% of all retail gift card sales are not being spent.
So for a consumer, that's not a good investment then, buying gift cards to use for yourself.
Right, and in I mean, you could buy it if you're going to use it. I mean, if you could save on the fuel perks or whatever, that's fine, but you got to spend it. You can't put it in your drawer and forget about it. And the concern over the holidays, people weren't buying the gift cards because they were afraid the retailers were going to go under. And so if I have a gift card for a store and they no longer exist, I lose that money. And so they were not the best gift under the
I want to ask Court and Dr. Thomas about the complexity of this thing. This money is coming down, and we've talked about housing, health care, minority participation in projects and the like. How do we, we're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we want to talk about how do we coordinate all of these things, and why are some of these elements part of the economic stimulus package and not something we should be doing anyway? Stand by. We're going to be right back. All right, we're talking about the economic stimulus package and how it might affect us in southwestern Pennsylvania. And when we went into the break, I was talking about how complex this is, and if we want to fix health care or grow health care here in southwestern Pennsylvania, grow housing, help people out of poverty, all of those things, how do we coordinate all of this to make sure that it's being done right? It's more than just oversight. It's a matter of coordinating and making sure the right projects get done. Let me ask Dr. Thomas, what's the answer to that question? What are your concerns, and how do you think it's going to shake down?
Well, let me just say, to set the stage, what we want to do is grow healthy neighborhoods and healthy people in those neighborhoods, make consumers of medical services smarter, and make sure that the services delivered are based on the best science available. That is part of the promise that's coming forward here. And I don't think we can do any of this. It is complex without open dialogue and public forums and discussion. One of the things about this election was so exciting is that so many people got involved. And we need to keep that momentum going so that we're all learning about how to be smarter consumers. But one of the things that Audrey said I want to put on the table, the question is, once we get out of this hole that we're in, do we simply go back to, spin, a consumer-based society where we as Americans simply buy things just to buy things? And that's a fundamental question of whether or not the way forward is simply going back to the sole consumer-based economy that we had.
As opposed to what?
Saving.
If it's not a consumer-based economy, what would it be?
What's the balance with? Well, let's talk about buying things we need, and let's talk about investing.
Who makes that decision? Who makes that decision, though?
Ultimately, the people make that
exactly.
decision.
And if they want to buy a car, they buy a car. If they want to buy gum, they buy gum.
Absolutely, and it's also shaped by the people who are advertising on your TV and everywhere else. So the question is, we got into this hole. We're going to get out of it, but the future ahead really is a question yet to be determined. We have, as a people, to come together to decide what kind of future we want. And that future, from where I'm sitting, needs to be one where we don't wait for people to get sick before we take care of them. We help people stay healthy in their neighborhoods. We make sure that the environments they live in are healthy, and we invest in the infrastructure of our cities and of our neighborhoods to ensure health and well-being.
Let's pick an example. What's the most serious problem right now in the Pittsburgh community health-wise, do you suppose?
Well, in my opinion, the problem of obesity and type 2
Okay, well, let's pick obesity. How can we use money from the economic stimulus package that's going to help people who are now obese or prevent obesity from being a problem in the community in the future?
Well, I'm hoping that your phone lines are lighting up with organizations that have programs and grant ideas that they have been trying to get funded to help improve physical activity in our community.
Well, we already have programs, Dr. Thomas, that we do. In public schools right now, there are various community health organizations that are trying to get the word out on things like obesity. Do we just increase that? I mean, is that a legitimate form of spending to stimulate the economy? That's the question.
Well, let me say this. Sometimes you have to leave in order to see the situation that we're in. And our obesity rates and our smoking rates are unacceptably high. And
I don't think anybody would argue with that. But when we're talking specifically about the economic stimulus package, how does that kind of money, how do you justify spending that kind of money on obesity, for example? Does that stimulate the economy? Obviously, it makes people more healthy, but you see what I'm getting at.
I see what you're getting at. I go back to where I started, that the monies that go into the National Institutes of Health, which are designed to support research specifically on improving the health of the American people, is money well spent. That money is spent through a process of informed scientific merit, peer review. It's one of the best mechanisms that we have to ensure that the best science is funded.
Well, let me ask Court and Dr. Gusky about that. Do you have any feelings about the issue that I'm bringing up?
Yeah, in the terms of productivity, stimulus programs that help to modernize and retrofit our schools so that they're safer, healthier environments that bring down weight issues and other health effects that compound learning difficulties. There's a tremendous amount of stimulus dollars that will come into Pennsylvania for green building initiatives to provide workplaces for employees that offer fresh exchange of air on a routine basis.
But let me get back to the question I was asking Dr. Thomas, and that is, these are all good things, but is it